And now yeah, we come to something very, very important. It is basically your ability, or the writer's ability to see things properly. I mean, what we mean to see, we all have eyes, and we all can see. Well, that's true, but most of us, unfortunately, overlook the most interesting bits, around us, of our existence. The first task I normally give to my students, of travel writing seminars, and they all come there prepared to fly to Antarctica, and to go to the exploring deserts and whatever. And I say, look, could you do me a little essay about your street, the street where you live? They said, what's the street where you live? It's bloody boring, there's nothing there. It's kind of council estate or whatever. I said, well, council estate is even better, you know, because if you want to be a writer, you have to be able to see interesting things. And otherwise, in seemingly uninteresting places. Just try and find something, open up your eyes, and after some resistance, those who agreed to do it, they get surprised. They come back and say, really, it's quite interesting, I looked at that building there and I found out who lived in it, and I suddenly paid attention of an unusual shape of the gables about, and it was really quite interesting. So there are examples in history and literature of even more kind of striking achievements of travelers, like French philosopher Blaise Pascal, for example, he famously was able to travel just in his bedroom, in his room, and wrote a book about it. I think it was him, if I'm not mistaken, yes. And another French uh, philosopher, Voltaire, who once went on a trip to England, with all his servants and so on, but well, he didn't reach England, got stuck in Calais, and after a couple of nights in Calais, he said he doesn't need to go to England anymore because he has seen enough of England, as much of England as he wanted to see, because he was there in his imagination. He saw people arriving from there and so on. So it was enough for him. So basically, the point here is it's not the distance, good travel writing is not a category of distance. It's a category of observation, uh, it is possible to travel in your own street. It is possible to travel in your own room. And at the time of lockdown, like we're experiencing now, this quality becomes even more important. You can all try to do it, and I guarantee you're going to discover some amazing stuff. Incidentally, I'm not sure whether my friend Alessandro is here from Italy, but he saw one of my latest features on Lecce's Garden City, the town where we live, in Geographical magazine, and well, which obviously I'm myself a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, so it normally writes about places distant and hard to access. And he kind of texted me rather ironically, oh, that's what all travel writing came to now, basically write about the place where you live. It's kind of an easy way out. Well, it is and it is not. It's, well, I'm lucky to be living in the town, which is very interesting and unique, but uh, well, try to write an essay about some less interesting town, like Grimsby, for example. I don't know why I just like the name, or Stevenage. Uh, I'm sure it can be a great work of literature, well, maybe a drama, tragedy, I don't know, or a thriller, maybe, rather than just a descriptive piece, but still, it's fascinating. So again, I'm reminded of the words of one of my favorite poets. I often quote poets because I like poetry. I actually started my career as a poet, and poetry is very good because it teaches you to be, it's a good schooling for any writer, to be careful with words, to find the words properly and appropriately. So Boris Pasternak, he said about poetry that to find poetry, you don't need to climb high up in the mountains. You have to look down, bend down, and pick it up because it's in the grass under your feet. That's what poetry is. And I can say the same about, well, anything in literature, in writing, in travel writing, new impressions, interesting details. Yeah, they're there. They're under your feet. Um, and I cannot tell you how important they are. It's one little, because if you get one detail right, it saves you pages and pages of unnecessary descriptions. Uh, I was still while in the Soviet Union, journalist. I was once in Moldavia, now called Moldova, and my host took me as a kind of a treat, really. It had nothing to do with my assignment, as a kind of a treat to the world's largest wine cellars in Novi Malesti, the cellars which are 250 kilometers long. They only use 50, but that's quite enough. So it's an amazing place with the lorries, going in both directions, the underground, and all this wine everywhere. Yeah, Brian, you're right. You can't drink too much wine. But anyway, so I went to the cellars, and I was escorted by well, a local winemaker there, and he was a kind of a otherwise a remarkable guy with a ruddy face. But he has one interesting detail. On the bridge of his nose, there was a little scar, a corn of a wine glass. because, and when I asked him what was, he said, "Well, that's a scar, a corner from a wine glass because he tastes wine constantly. And when you taste the wine, the upper rim, the upper part of the rim of the glass touches your nose. And if you do it constantly, it results like a corner on your foot or whatever." So he had this scar. And basically, if you say, I was escorted by a local winemaker with the scar left by wine glass on the bridge of his nose. That's all you have. You don't have to say anything about this guy. Yes, he had a red face. He said he was suffering from wineism, disease of winemaker. But you can see red face, you don't need to describe his face, because a man with the corner of the glass on his nose cannot have any other face but red. So you can check. I don't know. It's pretty hard to find such people probably. So that's the importance and the strength of this one only correct detail, which is worth well many words and paragraphs basically. Well, as I said, I'm just trying to make it all rather concise, but I must mention one other things, and which is kind of probably the most dangerous trap for every writer, especially travel writer, is the danger of cliches, of tropes. I mean, it's very easy. I mean, if you read well, any kind of guidebook, particularly kind of Lonely Planet ones and so on, and when they try to describe something, it's all full of cliches, totally meaningless cliches. But what worries me even more is that thing that I mentioned already in the beginning, that many modern travel writers, or people who call themselves travel writers, they don't believe in the power of their vision and the power of their own observation. So, and they carry props with themselves, yeah. And I kind of, I think this is totally unnecessary, and I actually hate this kind of attitude. Like, for example, the famous fridge around Ireland. Of course, you can make it funny. Take a fridge with you, take a piano with you, take any kind of elephant, but then, well, it will be a novel or a story about the fridge, carrying the fridge, not about Ireland and not about the country which you claim to be describing, because the reader will be distracted. It's this kind of elephant in the room, that is impossible to overlook. So you don't need props. The only thing you need is a pair of eyes, wide open eyes, and a lot of curiosity, a lot of vision. Okay, right, give the command to wind it up, which I will. So basically, well, you know what I mean. Just basically let go of your past, get lost, and open up your eyes. So that's the secret. And don't think about necessarily about putting it on paper. It will come. It will come. About the notes, for example. I mean, writers make different notes. I make very copious notes deliberately. I have horrible handwriting. Christine will confirm that. Absolutely unreadable. I can't read it myself. But, I almost do it deliberately, because when 2 years later, when I sit down to write that book, that feature, and try to decipher my own scribbles, and it's impossible. So I have to bring myself back in my imagination to that. I said, what was that? Oh, a house, a beach house, kind of a house. And then suddenly, I get teleported back to that particular place 2 years ago. Memory is an amazing stuff. Yeah, like Bill Bryson, for example, he told me He doesn't make a lot of notes, he just makes, like, for example, he writes on one page, there's a big yellow building, or something like that. And that's it. And then he remembers it. And that's important as well, because this is like a beacon that kind of takes you back, that drags you back to the story which you research. Sometimes it happens, you have to write a story several months, if not years afterward. But again, I come back to Patrick Lee Thurmer, one of my favorite travel writers, and I was supposed to talk about my favorite travel writers, which I probably don't have time, but I can still do it if someone asks me to.